link to it.
We're replacing it.
Or at least attempt to. Okay.
Oh, did David leave the server?
We banned him, David Schlauhauer.
I and I didn't, and I wasn't told. Damn.
Yeah, David.
Not mad.
Yeah,
But, like,
David.
it's crazy.
Yeah, David was causing some problems. We didn't want him there anymore.
Oh no, I'm
Okay.
not surprised.
Yeah.
I didn't like the man, but like it was a me thing for that time, you know.
Sure. There's a bit rate of 2500. Okay. Settings. Let's apply 2500 to this. Okay. I reduced the bit rate quite a bit on this.
Bitrate might be the causes, yeah.
Yeah,
Bitrate has been a problem with me before.
Oh yeah, bit rate's definitely the problem. It seems.
Okay, that's good. If it looks at least somewhat reasonable,
Yeah, I
but
reduced it to
smooth,
2500, so
2500 sounds fairly reasonable.
oh yeah, we'll
I
be
think.
fine. We'll be fine. Yep. That looks like it.
Awesome.
We were setting I had like 10,000 before.
10,000?
Yeah, because I had high-speed internet.
Oh my goodness. Hold on, what's a bitrate on mine? I'm wondering now, actually.
Yeah. Okay, never mind. We're good. We're good. We're good to go. We'll start at 9 o'clock then.
Awesome.
Yep.
Then I'm gonna call the other guy over. Red, whatever.
Red tie, yeah, let him know that we fixed it. My bitrate was way too high.
10,000 though, are you kidding me? It should be at most 3,500.
Okay.
It's like the
now
higher
I know.
the bitrate you go.
Yeah. Okay. Now that we've taken care of that,
the
bitrate's good.
Waiting for red tide to go on here.
Waiting for John.
Yeah. All right, John too.
All right.
I want at least one of them to be here before we go. Because like Red Tie sounds like he knows a lot about this stuff just looking at his demeanor.
Yeah. Yeah.
How long was he here actually?
He's been here since Helene.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I don't remember him, but like he said he was here last year, so I'm probably like just brain farting right now.
Sure. Well, it's a good thing we set to 2,500. Stream's running smoothly, actually. I'm gonna attempt to do something very quickly. Oh.
Pat, something you should just know though, for future reference. Try to make everything the lowest, like with technology and stuff like that. Make settings the lowest reasonable setting you can.
Okay.
Because like sure, you have enough internet to do whatever with, but like if you want to run other things, or if you suddenly figure out that you're now in a worse situation, then it's gonna kick you right in the butt. Take example, right now, actually.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for the heads up. Yeah, this will be fine. We're streaming at 720 at quality too, so we should be good. Yeah. But yeah, we'll get started at 9 o'clock then.
Goodness, I cannot figure out what my own bitrate is actually. Damn.
Yeah. You go to settings. Output. I think it's output.
Output, probably streaming. My bitrate is at 3,000. My recording bitrate is at, well, it doesn't tell me. Damn.
All right.
But yeah, 3,000 should be good. It's the standard on OBS.
Yeah, mine's 2,500, so I'm gonna keep it as such. But yeah, all right. I am going to get the intro ready again, and same deal as last time. All right.
Also, an idea that we should have for the next streams, whatever, is that we should allow 5 extra minutes for people to trickle in because like from the beginning of a stream, we're saying all this crucial information that people need, but that's when there's less people. But if we give 5 minutes to trickle in, that will be like 20, 30 extra people in that'll hear that information. Awesome. Awesome.
Season, the Path Predictor is back. What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Tonight's going to be pretty interesting. I do apologize for what happened with my camera when it changed and all of that. I've been kind of working behind the scenes because we've been having some issues tonight with some of the streaming and all of that. So, yeah, we originally started about half an hour ago, but then some problems came up. We got those issues fixed, thankfully, but I forgot to adjust all the settings and all of that. So, I do apologize for that. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get some. Let's go ahead and get started with the stream tonight. First off, we have Yoshi in the call right now. Yoshi, say hello.
Hello.
Yeah, and John will also be joining us shortly as well to be talking about the tropics with us. So we're very happy to have him back, and we're excited to see when he comes in. So yeah, we're gonna have some fun tonight. We're gonna be talking a lot of tropics, and we'll see what happens at the end of the day. So with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and kind of get right into it a little bit. Um, so yeah, everything's good. The streams looks good. Yeah, I shouldn't have any problems with that. But let's go ahead and okay, this needs to be moved. I really messed up everything. But all right, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it, and we'll go ahead and move over and talk about the tropics. So basically, here's our rundown for the stream tonight. We're mainly going to be talking about kind of like the seasonal stuff, what we could be expecting during the season, as well as the parameters we're paying attention to, and all of those factors in between. And I know Yoshi's been sending some stuff in Storms United, our Discord server, talking about that. He sent a lot of parameters in our stream resources chat below the Tropical WX discussion. So I'm going to go ahead and have him talk about some of the parameters he's looking at tonight, and we'll just go from there. Yoshi, for the second time tonight, go ahead and go for it.
All right. Hello. I'm Yoshi, and I will be covering a lot of tropics. I have about 5 years experience with meteorology so far. 3 years dedication, and I'm still learning a lot. I'm hoping for uh, university classes soon enough.
Yeah.
But enough about me and my background. This is about the tropics. So, first off, let's look at the current Atlantic since Pat already has it pulled up.
Yes, I do.
So, the major things we're looking at right now, there really is nothing major going on in the Atlantic.
Oh, you're talking about satellite, yeah.
Other than about two tropical waves, but they're fairly well hidden within the ITCZ.
Yep.
We do have a suspected third tropical wave heading off Africa, but that isn't proven. That isn't on surface analysis yet. So
Yep.
we won't be able to see that until tomorrow. Actually, let me look at Barbados Atlantic analysis. There we go. Let me send that in tropical WX discussion.
All right, perfect. I'll go ahead and take a look at
Bam.
that there.
This is the surface analysis by the Barbados Meteorological Service, which shows two tropical waves, one very slow moving one a faster moving one.
Yep.
I'm waiting for it to show on Pat's screen. It
Yep,
is
it's right
slightly
here, the
delayed.
first
Don't
wave.
worry, it's not any problems. Yep. It's normal. There we go. Awesome.
Yeah, the first wave is actually, you know what I'll do for you, Yoshi, to make things easier is I'll just go ahead and share my screen on the Discord, so that way it can make things better. Share my screen.
This is fine. I've worked around this before.
Yeah.
It's probably gonna make your computer slightly worse.
Don't worry about it. Let's see.
But if we do start to see
problems, we're good. OBS is fine. Yeah.
But, there we go. Okay, cool. So we have tropical wave number 1, which is on the South American coast. It's probably causing some flooding over there. But via Trinidad and Tobago Meteorological Service on May 19th announced the beginning of their wet season due to the ITCZ, which is a band of worldwide thunderstorms across near the equator, moving north enough as to where we got direct rainfall from it. Another tropical wave number 2 aloft, is just south of the Cabo Verde Islands. Yep. And it's just chugging along. Neither of them are going to develop for now. Although if one were to develop now, that would be extremely worrying.
Yeah.
And there's a potential third one. I'd have to look at models later to see if it was a third tropical wave. But looking at the convective signature on that so far, it does look like one.
Yep.
But now we're not just here to look at the Atlantic and look at nothing. We're here to look at what may become the Atlantic. Pull up the SST chart,
Yes, I
please.
am. And while we're at it, John
Awesome.
has joined the stream. John, say
Let's
hello.
go.
What's up?
Hey, John. Welcome to almost hurricane season. Welcome to the first stream of the year for that.
It came up quick, that's for sure.
Yep. All right. So while you're here, Yoshi's going to be going over some of the parameters he's been watching, and I'm going to be giving my input as well, starting with the sea surface temperatures. And this is the sea surface temperature anomalies that we have pulled up for you right here. We already looked at the SSTs earlier in the video we posted today on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. We're looking at pretty good waters, like 28 plus degrees Celsius waters
Very good
from
water.
the Gulf all the way to past the Lesser Antilles, with some isolated 30s in Cuba, Florida, the Bahamas, and off the coast of Africa. But let's go ahead and dive into some of the anomalies, and I'm going to let Yoshi explain what he's looking at and why we're watching these especially.
Before we get to that, though, we have yet another new person here on here.
Oh,
Brendan. Welcome,
Brendan is on here. Our general manager, Brendan. Hello, welcome to
General manager.
Oh, this must be the wrong VC.
Brendan.
Oh, no.
Welcome to the first tropical stream of the year.
Oh, it's about that time, huh? Time flies when you're
I know.
facing tornadoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, would you like to stick around and help us out?
I sure can, but I will certainly just be a fly on the wall. It seems like you guys have a really good discussion already.
All right, Yoshi, you go ahead and get started.
Brendan is the general manager, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're like a certified meteorologist. You're getting really close to that, yeah?
I have my bachelor's in meteorology.
Good enough.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so here's our current SST map as of May 23rd, 2025. So the reason that it's a day behind is because it takes time for OISST to do the satellite stuff and look at all the buoys and make a map out of it, get all the data. So right now, there is a lot of stuff to look at. This SST chart may seem simple, and a lot of you may be thinking, oh, the warmer everywhere, the better. In a lot of cases, that certainly is not true. Now, don't get me wrong, in many areas, the warmer is better, but in other areas, you actually don't want it to be too warm, and you want it in certain configuration. Take example, the main development region going from 10 west to 90 west and 10 north to 20 north degrees.
Yep, it's this blob right here from pretty much the Western Caribbean all the way to Africa, pretty much, just for context. Right.
But
here.
A lot of people split the MDR into two sections, the Caribbean and the Eastern MDR. That is split at 60 west, or you can, how I do it is the islands, the Lesser Antilles Islands. That's a split. And the Eastern MDR goes from 10 west to 60 west, 10 north, 20 north. And a lot of people look at that, and this is one of the areas where it's just that the warmer, the better, mostly.
Yeah.
And as you see, the southern half of the Eastern MDR is warm. It is quite warm. And the northern half is not as warm. Some parts of it are actually colder than normal.
Yeah.
And you might be thinking, this is way less than we saw in recent years. And yeah, it is. But I don't think this is going to be a problem. And I'll tell on why later. But the MDR so far, at least in my opinion, we're looking good enough. It won't be an inhibiting factor.
All right.
Next up to the Caribbean. The Caribbean, especially the northern and western parts of the Caribbean, have been looking at a heat dome for the last week, and we'll keep looking, and we'll keep being under heat dome for the next week or so. We see MWF saying 6 days, GFS saying it may continue even more. But the Caribbean everywhere is looking warmer than normal. Not to 2024 levels, sure, but it's certainly looking warmer than normal, and that's definitely an enhancing factor.
Yes.
Next up, we're going to skip the Gulf of Mexico because I want to cover a lot more on the Gulf of Mexico specifically because I'm very worried about the Gulf of Mexico right now. Let's look at the subtropical Atlantic, which is, I believe, from 20 north to 35 north.
Pretty
40?
much where my cursor is rotating.
Awesome. And you'll see again, it's half cold, half warm. And you might be thinking, that's not good. And yeah, in some cases it wouldn't be good. Because if the subtropical Atlantic is warmer than the main development region, then that would cause stability. That would cause more stability within the MDR, and therefore less storms. Storms want instability. If you don't have that, gone storms.
Yep.
However, one thing is that the eastern subtropics are super cold, and that's actually where you want to see those colder SSTs.
Yeah, the colder than average SSTs, yes.
Colder than average, yeah. Because for what I've read, and we got two people smarter than me in here, Pat and Brendan.
Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the western subtropic Atlantic SSTs don't matter as much as the eastern subtropical SSTs in terms of stability.
Not in particular, no. And the reason why is because in the eastern Atlantic, in that MDR region we were talking about, you want that temperature gradient to add to the instability of that. Of course, there are other factors in play, such as the Azores and Bermuda High and all of that stuff, but you do want that temperature gradient in order to keep that instability pretty much going and allowing for that initial development to take place.
Good info. So we're seeing actually kind of exactly that going on in the MDR here.
Yep.
As you see. So this is kind of prime. The only issue I'd say that we're looking at for the MDR is around 15 north. If 15 north warms up a bit, and that Canary Current, you see how the Canary Current right off the coast of Africa?
Yep, I see it.
That cold spot, that's the Canary Current. If that warms up, which it could, which I think it will, and I'll tell you why more in a bit, but that Canary Current may warm up. So I personally don't think that Canary Current is an issue. Oh, hold on.
What's up?
For a minute.
What's up, Yoshi? Uh-oh.
Oh, he just...
What heck? What's going on? Okay. That's not good. All right.
Yeah, I think what, I'll kind of just finish off his point. I think he had a lot of great kind of key sort of call-outs there. I'll also double down and say, just as a friendly reminder to those that are watching, when we think about development in the MDR,
yeah,
or we even think about the strengthening of a system, especially as it approaches the Caribbean and the Gulf, it's not just the sea surface temperatures.
No.
That is a very important ingredient, but it's as a reminder, it's not the only one. For example, I don't think it would be a surprise, as we've seen the last few years, to see a ton of Saharan dust clog up the eastern Atlantic basin. Right?
Yes.
Now, you are showing right now here. Actually, if you could just go back to that IR satellite.
Yep, I'm showing it.
Quite telling. Yeah, we have a little bit of activity there, and that's an area that we tend to watch. Aside from the July, August, which tends to be that Saharan dust period where a lot of convection gets sort of caught up in that dust and really just fizzles out. Because remember, convection hates dry air, especially in the tropics.
Oh, absolutely.
So really, in terms of, I think, initial development, I know some of the models have already been picking it up, but the Eastern Pacific is an area to watch this early on in the season, even to some degree the Caribbean. I don't expect the eastern portion of the Atlantic Basin, or really that eastern portion of the MDR, to really be active once again until probably, late July, August.
Yeah.
But aside the point, there was a couple of different tangents there, but not to take away from the main point, which is, again, we want to be watching for these other ingredients like shear, like dust off of the Saharas, and then some. And so, Pat, I guess from one meteorologist to another here, you've spent quite a bit of time looking at the tropics.
Yes, I have.
I guess my question to you is, okay, so we are likely going to be heading into more of this ENSO neutral regime, which we're pretty much, I would say, close to that, if not already there. What does that mean for the hurricane season? Because that's something that everybody watches for. El Nino versus La Nina,
absolutely, yeah.
What are we talking? Higher activity?
In terms of what we're looking at right now, based on what we've seen from the ENSO forecast and the observations I have looked at earlier today, we are in a very slight negative neutral phase in terms of in terms of the basics. Generally, El Nino favors less tropical activity. La Nina generally favors more tropical activity, but there is a kind of range and a kind of caveat to both, in particular the La Nina phase of it. You don't want an extremely strong La Nina for hurricane season if you want a very active one. The reason what you don't is because a very strong La Nina weakens the trade winds to a point where it gets to the point where convection just goes up and it just chokes itself with the downdraft. This is Met 103 essentially. In order for a storm to survive, as the convection goes up, it needs a little bit of shear to tilt it, so that way when the downdraft does hit and the rain hits, it's not infiltrating and it's not choking up the updraft. That's generally what we're looking at that current point. Now, in terms of how much shear is enough for that, maybe a good 5-10 knots, even up to 15 if you want to be a bit more liberal with that, is good for that kind of convection. And that's not just tropics, that's mid-latitude, that's any type of convection right there generally. But ultimately, the problem is the tropics are a lot more sensitive to the wind shear than mid-latitudes are. For example, our severe thunderstorms, yes, they require quite a lot of shear to really develop and all of that. But I've also learned recently that too much shear can ultimately cause the anvil to move too far away and ultimately just choke out the storm, essentially. But that's a tangent for another day. Essentially, what's the point of all of this? Well, basically, a neutral phase is a bit tricky because it depends on how neutral it is. Is it a positive a neutral phase where it's leaning more towards El Nino, or a negative neutral phase where it's leaning more towards La Nina? What we're looking at this cycle and for this season is a negative neutral phase for the most part, and some forecasts are calling for a weak La Nina. That is what you need for an active hurricane season. It's kind of that sweet spot where, yes, you have that negative neutral phase that weakens the trade winds slightly compared to the average, and allows for less shear and allows for more convection to fire up and more organized convection to develop. So what we're looking at now is a more negative neutral phase, and because it weakens the trade winds just enough, that will allow for more hurricanes and more tropical cyclones to be named. I hope that answers your question, Brendan.
Yeah, it does. And I believe we have Yoshi joining us back.
Yep, he is back.
Not to pivot back, Yoshi, but if you could, I know you just joined back and you disconnected, but we were just talking about what an ENSO neutral regime would mean for the tropics.
Yeah.
But I also want to connect back to what you were saying, because I think you got cut off at the very end of your explanation. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So please go ahead. Yeah.
All right. What was I at? I think I was at the end of my tangent on subtropic SSTs. All right.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a very good pattern. My only problem personally would be 15 north, that it needs a bit more warming there. But otherwise, we're looking fairly good concerning MDR SSTs.
Yeah. That's what we're looking at, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I already said about Caribbean SSTs. We're covering Gulf of Mexico soon. but not right now. Next up, we're going to go up to the Gulf of Maine / the Canadian seaboard here.
I'll take a quick
This
look
is
at that
another area that
visualization.
has caused some problems concerning hurricane season, especially if you look back at 2023.
Yep.
I'm not too sure about on the processes on how this works, but a very warm Gulf of Maine / Canadian seaboard has correlated with issues with the MDR.
In
I
terms
believe
of less
stability
activity
issues.
or more activity?
Less activity.
Okay.
A very warm Gulf of Maine, yeah, it correlates to less storms. I believe in the MDR. I'm not as
Yeah.
sure as on the Caribbean, but definitely the MDR. I've heard that before. So just not having that is going to be way better on that because that means one less fail mode.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, we don't have a lot of fail modes this season. I'd argue to say that there's no obvious fail modes this season.
Well, I
And
would
someone
be.
smarter
That's
than me has said that.
yeah. I would say, from what we're looking at, yeah, there aren't as many as we were seeing last year. But to your point about the Gulf of Maine, it did warm up a little bit to 2024 levels, but over the last week or last 5 days, those temperatures in that region have crashed down to below
Yeah.
average actually. And if that holds and it stays below the standard deviation, then that only increases that instability gradient right there in particular, and
Yep.
we'll have to watch that very closely. But please continue.
Absolutely. And so we've seen that, especially with like East Coast storms that move up, that causes a lot of instability there.
Yep.
Just looking at that part of the Gulf Stream there's probably a lot of instability just naturally coming from that. It's crazy.
Yep.
Now we go to the Northeast Atlantic, which is Iceland, Ireland, the Iberian Peninsula, Morocco, France.
Yeah.
That area has warmed up an absolute ton thanks to a marine heat wave in Europe.
Oh yeah,
And
I've noticed that.
it is genuinely crazy on how much it has gone up. We're seeing some places that are 5 degrees above normal. That like looking in a meteorological perspective on that is huge.
That is
right
a
there.
massive problem. And if I may, could you explain to the audience why this is relevant to hurricane season in that regard?
Well, I'm definitely not as experienced as you guys are, so definitely correct. Definitely interrupt me if I'm getting wrong on something. But for what I have heard, anyways, all of this heat may trickle down, and we're already kind of seeing that actually. Look near Morocco and the Iberian Peninsula.
Yeah.
That was more akin to what we're seeing at 20 north, 30 west. Neutral to slightly below average sea surface temperatures.
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
But look at it now. Now we're seeing warm SSTs that are more akin to our heat wave here. So it's already, quote, trickling down like a raindrop.
And mainly through the currents, essentially, the currents that are in the region, I would say as well.
And this is why I think our current Canary Current problem is not going to be a problem in maybe a few weeks, if not a bit earlier, because all of this is going to go down into the Canary Current, which goes into the MDR.
Yep.
A warm Canary Current almost always supplies better and warm SSTs for the MDR, especially the East MDR.
Yep.
So seeing that trickle down into the Canary Current, which will further trickle that down, well, not trickle down, but it's going to be like a waterfall, basically, into the MDR, that's worrying, especially with temperatures that we're seeing like this. It's going to give a constant stream to the MDR. Now, I've heard another person, and this is totally possible, say that it could actually go into the western subtropics for another current. But the fact that we're seeing it drip down into Morocco and the Western Sahara coasts, that proves that the other option probably isn't going to happen, at least right now.
Yeah.
So that's really, really worrying, in my opinion. The MDR is going to get an almost constant stream of warm water if this continues.
Yeah,
And
especially on
it
the
is-
backside of it as the sun moves over the equator in particular.
Yeah.
And also you have to understand this water is also deeper as well because cooler water is deeper because it's more dense. So this isn't just warming the surface, Yoshi. This is also warming up the lower areas, and you know what that is going to add up to, right? You know what that's going to increase.
Goodness. The OHC is going to get
Ocean
crazy.
heat content. Yep. I need to pull up the OHC map from the University of Miami. That's the one thing I haven't done. Let me pull it up.
Apparently we're already for the total Atlantic, we're already at the second highest OHC already. So with that, plus what we're going to see in the Canary Current and MDR.
Yep.
There's no word to describe on how worrying this is.
Yep. I got it pulled up right here. Here's the OHC map for right now. OHC, this is typically I'm gonna go ahead and find some other data to kind of look at the data archive. Okay.
The chronic WX. Let me pull up something from the chronic WX. Subsurface. There we go. Let's look at tropical Atlantic.
Go ahead.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
I was just gonna post something here that shows exactly what you wanted.
All right. Yeah, I got the history.
It is kind of like an SSTA map. If you look in streams. Oh my
I'm
goodness!
looking at it in just a second. Okay.
Awesome.
I just got. All right. I'm pull that up in just a second. I'm pulling up 6 things right now. So if it does, so if I do, okay. All right. Is this the thing you just sent right here? Okay. Yeah, I got it. Oh, that's your potential on your OHC anomalies, right there.
OHC anomalies, yeah, and we see that there's a lot of blue, to be fair, in places where it does matter.
Yeah, I'm looking at that. I would say with the blue and orange contrast, that's more noise than a pattern right now, but we'll have to monitor it since it is still early.
Yeah. And you see Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico. I'm going to touch on that. I'm going to touch on Gulf of Mexico a lot. It's crazy. But Atlantic right now, in places where it does matter, it does look like overall it's about neutral, maybe. Hold on.
Yep.
There we go. Let's go. Red tie
Sorry,
here.
I just got back from doing my things.
All right. We're talking OHC. We're talking ocean heat content right now.
Ooh.
Well,
we got the SST. Not SST anomalies. Goodness. OHC anomalies. But yeah, overall, it looks to be about neutral to slightly above normal for VMDR, if I had to guess with my eyeballs. But all that blue, assuming that it's not just noise, which it could very well be, probably all of that is likely going to disappear and start to turn white or even red.
Yes.
Once we get this northeast Atlantic stuff getting over here. It's not, honestly, one of the most worrying things isn't, in fact, what we're seeing in the Gulf of Mexico. It's going to be the Northeast Atlantic. Now, it's more of a watch scenario because we can guess what it does, and I'm expecting what it does is what I just said it might do. But it might do something else entirely, which is totally possible.
Sure.
But I'm just seeing a canary current kind of thing, and oh goodness. All right. Going back to the SSTA map here, if we can.
Oh, SST map. Yeah.
Yep.
The anomaly one, I have like 16 things pulled up. This one.
No. Yeah.
All
All
right.
right. Awesome. So, but we're looking at it. We finally have one area left that I have been intentionally not have been talking about. The Gulf of Mexico. And that's because I have a lot of stuff on the Gulf of Mexico simply because of how warming it is. So going back to stream resources, looking at the second thing here, that is going to be the daily SST for the Gulf of Mexico from the climate reanalyzer from the University of Maine.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the climate reanalyzer. Yep, here's the climate reanalyzer right now.
Awesome.
I have it pulled up.
Can we go to
That's
Gulf of
Gulf of
Mexico?
Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, I've been watching it too.
Awesome.
It's been surging the last couple of weeks in particular.
Absolutely. If we can zoom in a good bit, and I mean a lot, then
Not like
no,
that.
not that way.
What do you want me to zoom into?
Just go to the second picture in stream resources, and we'll have it right there.
Oh, okay. Thank you for guiding me there. I appreciate that.
I
second-
tried doing that.
Oh, this one. Okay. Yeah, you see. Yeah, okay. Is this good? All right, go ahead.
There we go. Awesome. So, what you see right here is this is the average SST of the Gulf of Mexico versus other years. The orange line is 2024. The
right.
red line is right now, 2025.
Yep.
And the line right below it is 2023, I believe.
Yes.
So, today, as of today, we are, well, technically, as of yesterday, we were the second hottest Gulf of Mexico in recorded SSTs,
Yes.
which is crazy. Everyone was saying we won't get to 2024, and now we're almost at 2024.
Yep.
And it's been rising faster than 2024 was. And it might get above 2024 if I'm going to have to be honest with you. There's a chance of it doing that.
Oh, yeah. At the current trajectory, it definitely has that shot of doing it. We'll have to see what happens. Is there still... I'm just curious, because I know there was like a huge heat dome over that part of the Gulf. Is that still going to be persisting? Or at least the high-pressure area?
Yeah.
It is?
Yeah, actually, that is the fifth, I wouldn't say picture, fifth thing I have. This is due to a rig, whatnot, in stream resources. I probably should have pulled this up first.
Oh, I got it right here. This is the...
Do you know what's interesting?
Go ahead, right
This-
side.
Which I also found interesting. Just off the coast of Miami, it's called Virginia Key, off of the Key Biscayne.
Yeah.
It has already broken its record 3 weeks ahead of normal schedule.
Wow.
And was that from the Andy Hazelton post?
And it's not even near where it's supposed to be. So we have a lot of room. Just think, we have a lot of room to grow on these temperatures, which could affect the year growing even stronger. Just to point that out. I mean, like you said, it's already second hottest on record. No, everybody's saying, "Oh, we won't get to 2024." Well, we're right behind it, and I don't see why not.
That
Because
ridge
if you think
is very concerning to look at. I will say, especially with
Yeah.
how it's going to warm the Gulf. Because you have to understand the Gulf is more of a mesoscale type of thing than a synoptic
yeah.
scale type of thing. It
Oh, I
doesn't
see.
take
Oh,
nearly
yeah, I
as
see what
much
you
to
mean.
warm it as maybe the entire ocean.
ooh,
Yeah.
yeah,
That
Well, you
ridge
see this.
worries me. That hot heat dome worries me a lot.
Yes.
and even as well, if you look at the Pacific, which I've also been paying attention to, which I also find very interesting, it is becoming cool to neutral, which actually warms up the Atlantic more.
Where at in the Pacific?
The Southern Oscillation.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
talking about
I've been... Oh, yeah,
ENSO.
okay, I've been looking
Yeah.
at that. Yeah, that definitely increases
Yeah.
the gradient a little bit. I was
Yeah.
actually mentioning it earlier, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, even
Um,
in the Indian Ocean as well. If you look at the Indian Ocean as well, it's also cooling more than expected, which just fuels the Atlantic. I mean, just think,
Yeah.
all of the energy is now being pushed towards the Atlantic just to supercharge it.
Well,
So
Can we?
this is becoming a more concerning day by day. especially in the Gulf of Mexico, even in the like I would say East Coast as well. I mean, that's something that people are not thinking about as well. The
Mhm.
East Coast, it's just being fueled even more than usual. I mean, if you think about Hurricane Florence, right? It was a perfect fueling energy just in the East Coast.
Wasn't it?
That's where
Didn't it
most of
go
the
over the Gulf Stream? Florence?
uh
Wait. Oh, never mind. Florence. Yeah, I know what you're talking about in 2018.
yeah,
Oh yeah, it
yeah,
went over the Gulf Stream. That was
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, just think, even like, if it's okay, can I give out my, I guess, my risks of areas where I believe where the highest risk is possibly going
We'll
to be? Because
do
then
that
you're,
at the end of the
We'll do
stream if
that.
that's
Yeah.
okay,
okay.
Yeah.
We'll do
okay,
that at the end of the stream.
yeah, because,
Yoshi has some more things he'd like to bring up, and
oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I
go
wow.
actually
ahead,
have
go
some
ahead,
questions I do want to ask him about, in
yeah,
particular with the ocean heat content, because we're seeing that massive surge, particularly in the
yeah.
loop current. How concerned are you about that with that massive anomaly over there?
I'm gonna have to say it's something I'm not liking. I don't know what to think about it yet, but it's something I'm not liking.
Okay. I just thought I'd ask
Yeah,
that.
awesome.
Also,
Yeah.
and also,
Uh,
just to make a quick comparison here, this is the OHC from 2024 at this date last year, May 24th. You had a lot of orange and yellow OHC areas of around 100 to 125, cracking 150 in a couple of areas in isolated areas across the Gulf of Mexico and Caribbean Sea. MDR was a bit more localized towards the western half. I remember looking at these last year and I was like, okay, this is really going haywire. Here's what we're dealing with this year. This is 2025. Not nearly as much OHC in the Eastern MDR and the Western MDR and the Eastern Caribbean, but we're still looking at very concerning values in the loop current, in the Western Caribbean, and even in the ITCZ and the MDR. Let me actually take a look at this. Those values in the ITCZ have not really changed that much. Like, they've changed some, obviously, but not that much. And also, I'm noticing this too. The OHC in the western part of the the western part of the Atlantic Basin is actually up further to the north than last year. That is concerning because guess what? That puts more of the Bahamas, Florida, and the East Coast at play potentially as we go down the road. What are your guys' thoughts on what you're seeing with kind of the comparison, the analysis I'm making?
Well, it's definitely interesting. I mean, it does follow, especially what we've been talking about more than usual. Like I was saying, I would not be surprised. Like I said, the East Coast, especially near Florida, the Georgia, South Carolina, that area would
Yeah.
see more of a hit than usual. And like I said, those areas, especially Georgia, South Carolina, around, I would
Mm-hmm.
say, the Charleston area, does not see a lot of hurricane hits directly.
Sure.
So, I mean, just thinking about it, that could bring something historic for this season. I mean, just seeing it just trending north, that could be a little more worrying. Like I said, this thing has a lot more to grow. Like, this season is just about to start, and we're about to see temperatures spike. So, I would not be surprised, number one, the heat content grows a little more, and I guess it will just bring things to a whole different level than what we're seeing right now.
That's fine. I'm streaming. All right. Was that it, Red Tie? I'm sorry, I was dealing with something.
Yeah, no, you're completely good. No, that's it.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for that. All right. Well, I think we've covered the. Is there anything else we want to cover with the sea surface temperatures? Because there are a few parameters I do want to move on to as well that I think are equally as important. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about before I move on?
I want to cover what we're still looking at really quick since we do
Sure.
have to move on to other parameters. Yes. So basically, what this is showing 500 HPA geopotential height. this is where we see our troughs, our ridges at this height. It's a bit above the mid-level vorticity of tropical cyclones,
Yeah.
and even tropical waves. So this is where we start to move out of fronts and up into ridges, and the actual systems that cause our weather. 500 HPA is very important. Now, this ridge goes on for a solid 6 or so days on the ECMWF, at least on 12Z. I'm not as sure as on 18Z, but solid 6-7 days,
For the
which
Gulf of
is more
Mexico?
than enough to bring the ridge.
Okay.
And basically what the ridge does to educate some people is that this pretty much ridges are usually very warm.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it pushes everything kind of like down. So that means that you will have a Gulf of Mexico that has more sun and a Gulf of Mexico that has way more of a warm air mass.
And less convection
So,
too.
yeah, what I meant by a way more sunny Gulf of Mexico.
Yep.
So this is going to, one, heat it up, and two, make sure that anything that cools it down isn't there. By day 7 or 8, we get this little trough here, which is very much out of season, honestly.
Yeah.
But this trough has been trending weaker and weaker, especially on the GFS I've been looking at.
Okay.
So we may see this trend weaker. Now, this trough will allow the colder features to go up again, and that it may have a cold front attached to it. If we look at the, we're not going to pull it up, but the WPC forecast shows a cold front at the end. But that may not happen depending on what the models want to show. So, at least for the next 6 days, we're going to have this type of warming. And if we look at the end of a run, it's into the silliness range, I know, but that ridge tries to go back up in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
We're going to have to look more. We're going to have to look more to see if it really does try to do something like that. But honestly, I wouldn't be too surprised on that personally.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bet money on any of it. So not
sure.
the front, not the ridge going back.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the main thing is at the end, MDR, Gulf of Mexico is going to heat up a lot more over the next week or so.
Yep.
Which may beat 2024 for those who are who have experience during 2024. You know how 2024 was. It was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
We had 30-degree SSTs across the Gulf of Mexico by early October. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And us being above that in terms of right now this year versus right then last year, it would be crazy.
What
All right.
I will say is, I'm looking at this. We're only about 0.3 degrees below 2024 right now, based on the climate reanalyzer, and that may seem like a lot in terms of a global scale, but this is a regional scale. That is minuscule right there. And if this does beat out 2024, that's going to only cause more and more problems for stuff like if a Milton happened again, where it developed in the Western Gulf and then just exploded in intensity from there.
And we've had multiple days where we have jumped 0.1 degrees, even 0.2 degrees. We had one day where we jumped from 1 degree above to 1.2 degrees above. I believe that was yesterday, actually. When I saw that, I was like, oh my goodness, really? That happened?
We were at 27.7 average temp. The next day we were at 28. That's a 0.3 degree increase in a day.
Oh my
For the entire Gulf of Mexico, that is an insane jump. I'm sure a lot of
We
people
could
right now are
even-
happy because that means warmer waters for the beach for Memorial Day weekend. But pay attention to what happens in the next couple of months and when hurricane
something
season
that
ramps
looks
up.
good.
Go ahead.
Something
Pat,
that
can I
looks
get in here?
good
Yeah,
now
go
is
ahead.
going to kick you in the butt later.
Go ahead, Brendan.
No, I'm sorry, Yoshi. I was going to jump in real quick. Can we go back? I know you want to move on to the other variables, but one last thing. Can you go back? I believe it was that University of Miami chart that showed the sea surface temperature. Was it the anomalies? You were showing?
The
Or sea
OHC.
surface
OHT,
The
you
OHC.
mean?
Yeah, ocean heat content. Okay, so that's as of. Oh, that is as of May 24th. I just wanted to confirm that it's
Sure.
as of
All right.
today.
Okay.
Interesting. So, ideally, with this, I mean, considering what we've already seen on model guidance, I would think, and then going back to that chart that contrasts the sea surface temperatures relative to prior years, I think the Gulf is I mean, it's already increasing significantly in its SSTs.
Yep.
It's just going to jump like that. As a matter of fact, I'll make the argument that the Gulf. I mean, speaking of concerns, I think it's ultimately going to be higher. It's going to break last year. I mean, if you have that type of high pressure regime across the Gulf and it's just parked, and considering the fact that from the continental United States, we're going to be talking about upper level ridging all the way up into Manitoba. I mean, what would be a January pattern in May? That to me just screams a rapidly deteriorating situation in the Gulf.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
also going to leave a situation, and just for those folks that are watching, I think Yoshi did a great job at highlighting this. You have that high pressure that we're talking about stability. We're not talking about tropical convection in the Gulf. And so that's untapped energy. And it's basically just going to act as one big furnace. And, by the time we get to, say, July, August, once the MDR really wakes up, even in the Western Caribbean,
Yep.
it's open season. So very concerning. I really, Pat, I'm amazed by that chart. That is a significant jump. And quite frankly, we're definitely going to shatter 24. That there's no question about it.
Could we break 2023? That peaked at
2023 was already broken, I believe.
I think we're going to get really damn close.
yeah, because I know at the
I
peak we
would
got to like
argue-
31.22 in the Gulf on August 13th.
I think it's gonna make a run for it, but I think in the immediate, I would, on a probabilistic standpoint, I'd give it about a 95% chance we easily do 24 in the next, say, 3 weeks.
All right.
Wow.
That's
To
not
hear
good.
someone who has as much education and as much experience as you saying that we're going to beat out 2024 and maybe 2023 in terms of RHC is. I don't think there is a word in the English dictionary that describes how, I wouldn't say worried I am. I would say a mix of like worry and surprise, if I'm going to have to be honest.
Yeah, what I would say is looking at this, I remember back 2 years ago, it started off kind of similar, the OHC did, to this map right here, but because we had those insane SST anomalies across much of the subtropical Atlantic, just suppressing that El Nino, you saw those OHC content maps get jumped up. And then you had nothing happen in the Western Atlantic for after Adalia. That OHC stayed there. And it was a lot of it was used up during Beryl, although because it was moving so fast, it didn't really touch the surface of it. Beryl used some of it. Debbie was not strong enough to tap into that. Francine used quite a bit of it. Helene absolutely used a lot of it, though, for sure. And so did Milton in the Gulf. What hurricanes tend to do, their purpose is to cool the waters down. They churn up the water, they mix it up, and because of upwelling, those cooler waters below end up coming closer to the surface and cooling the sea surface temperatures down. Not to mention the insane amount of rain as well that these things dump. So ultimately, what I'm looking at right now is we could see, at least in some areas of the Atlantic, particularly in the subtropical Atlantic and maybe the MDR, a similar situation to what we saw in 2023 in terms of SSTs and OHC. But we'll have to see what happens for that. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we move on? Go ahead, Yoshi.
I want to talk about. I'm probably gonna skip the NMME 2 meter temperature anomaly.
Sure.
But really quick, in like 5 seconds, basically it shows like over the entirety of a hurricane season, we are seeing a really good warming pattern over here for the Gulf of Mexico. Not even like I'm looking at it's crazy. But what I want to go to, which is honestly more important, not more important, but definitely almost as important, is actually the South Atlantic. And you might be thinking, how does that correlate at all? The South Atlantic SST map.
All right.
Well, because we're seeing, and I need to go back to the original post where I got it. It's in Stream Resources right below the rigs GIF.
Yep. I'm getting there right now. Okay, that's not it. Oh, I see it. Is that the map? Is it this map right here that I'm pulling up right now? You check my stream. Is this it?
No.
Okay.
But that is going to be used for later on. Don't worry.
Okay. I'm just quickly taking a gander. Is it
Mhm.
It's not the moisture of that.
Not the moisture. It's right below the Gulf of Mexico rigs GIF. It's the SST right
I see
now.
it. I see it.
There we go.
There we go. My bad. Here we go. Go ahead.
All right. So you see that there is in the longitude of northern Brazil, about the equator, we see very cool SSTs right there.
Yes.
Very cool SST anomalies. Anyways, correction. And a person you guys can interrupt me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
But a person smarter than me has told me, who's in university, has told me that this is indicative of a positive AMM. I forgot. Atlantic Meridional. Goodness, I can't pronounce it. I can't remember it.
Meridional?
Meridional, yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Meridional. I'm not going to try to do that. Okay. But basically, it takes, for what I know, for what I've been told, it takes the ITCZ northward. So, with the ITCZ northward, that means it is better positioning for cyclogenesis, and that means that not as much storms will be crashing into South America, which means that sure, we have slightly more of a recurvature problem with us, but that also means that more of those storms may also reach land.
Okay.
Especially on the eastern seaboard.
All right.
So positive AMM basically is like the everything is better type of thing concerning that stuff.
All right, we got a couple of questions in chat right now. What do we think about the Central American impacts? We'll get to that a little bit later. Do you believe west coast of Florida will likely see any tropical systems?
I have a bit to say on that. That has to be at the end, but I've got a bit to say on that.
We'll answer those questions in a little bit. But please continue, Yoshi, and then we can move on to some of the other things I want to briefly touch on.
Final thing for SST base, but it's also really important. If we go below the marine heat wave, since we already covered that, we go, I'm gonna link it here. Actually, just link it.
All right.
Bam! Just look down, and you'll see me link it.
Yep. Take your time with that. We'll see it.
No, I just linked it right now in the channel. If you look in the channel, the newest message should be just me replying to it.
Brilliant.
That's what I mean.
I'm looking at the chat. It's not there. Is it in stream
Real?
resources?
Yeah, it's in stream resources. I'm sorry. I should have said that.
Okay. Is this the NA wormhole you're talking about?
Yep.
Oh, I got it.
Awesome.
There you go.
So this comes from someone who works in a university, someone who is known climate, has worked on climate change, has worked on pre-seasonal what makes the Atlantic active.
Yep.
And what we see right here is that we see the North Atlantic wormhole, which pretty much is a series of cooler temperatures south of Greenland towards the Canadian seaboard. And what that does basically is it has a correlation of slowing storms down along the East Coast and in the Gulf of Mexico.
Right.
Some storm he pointed out would be Tropical Storm Emily of 2017. He also mentioned out Harvey, I believe Hermine, Irma apparently was one of them, which is crazy. Maria, Jose. I think Jose was this. I think he mentioned Jose. I'm not too sure. He mentioned basically throughout 2014 to 2018, which was when this was the last time we had this wormhole of sorts. A lot of storms were very, very slow.
Okay.
And we're seeing this pop up once again. And I believe something about ridge placement. It affects ridge placement as to where it slows these storms down.
Okay.
So that means that on average anyways, for this year, if this keeps up, that we're likely going to see slower storms. We didn't have that over the last few years, which thank God we didn't have that, or else we would have had an even worse experience. Milton went from one side of Florida to the other within, I believe, 6 to 8 hours.
Yep.
Tropical Storm Emily, which was a tropical storm, well, obviously, which was weaker though. It went across the one side of Florida to the other in a full day. Now think about Milton crossing Florida not in 6 to 8 hours, but in a day.
Or even in 12 to 16 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, if you cut that in half, that's a problem.
That would be devastating.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly.
Oh, yeah, especially for a lot of areas.
And this is going to be across the entire eastern seaboard. So, if any storm crosses paths with this, which it most likely would, then we would probably see a big problem with it being slow.
Yep.
We're going to see more rainfall amounts. I'm not saying like things like Helene, but think Harvey. Think Harvey. To anyone that knows what happened with Harvey, think about that.
Houston.
And think about that happening maybe this year. I'm not saying it will. And I don't think we're going to see another Harvey. That was devastating. But I am saying that the chances of getting another Harvey are higher than even last year, if I'm going to have to be honest.
Yeah.
Mainly because of the ridge placement and ridge strength being affected by this thing. All right, so we covered a lot of sea surface temperature stuff and a lot of ridge stuff.
Yes.
But what about other stuff? We need to look at other stuff. SSTs are important,
yes,
certainly, and the effects that come off of them are important, but we need to look at other stuff.
We definitely do. Yeah. You want me to? You want to start? Would you like me to?
I think we already covered ENSO, but I do have a few maps of where we didn't show yet, I believe. I'm gonna link to this within stream resources.
Sure. Oh, yeah. I looked. I didn't show that exact map, but I did touch upon this a little bit earlier before in the stream, so yeah,
Oh, awesome.
I've already touched on that a little. I've already touched on that, but I have seen those products. But I do
All
appreciate
right.
you sending those to me.
We also got the IOD index. Pretty much what the IOD is sea surface temperatures. I know, y'all are gonna get tired of it,
I'm gonna, man.
but
Take a shot every time somebody says sea surface temperature.
Yes, please.
For those who are of age.
Yeah.
I promise you, it's an important thing that's outside the Atlantic that that is more towards the ENSO than Atlantic activity itself.
Okay.
But that ENSO will correlate to Atlantic activity.
Sure.
So at least that. So it's more ENSO than really anything.
Okay.
Basically, what the IOD is how sea surface temperatures, take a shot, are how they're managed across the Indian Ocean. A negative IOD, which is likely what we're going to look at, would be warmer sea surface temperatures, take a shot, or off of Malaysia, and colder than normal sea surface temperatures, take a shot, off of Somalia.
Bro, I'm already wasted at this point. I'm not actually drinking. It's just, yeah.
Oh no. And for what I've heard, anyways, correct me if I'm wrong again, but a negative IOD helps ENSO turn cooler pretty much. Okay. Hopefully that is enough on sea surface temperatures.
Yep.
Hopefully last drink. Now we go to landfall probabilities. I wanted to go on upper tropospheric temperature, but I'm going to have to skip that for now because I want to get to the possible fail-safes at the end.
Okay, let's talk about landfall probabilities for sure, and then we can talk about a few other things that we could look at, but go for it.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to, once again, reply to the message I want y'all to look at in stream resources. Do have to say that. Gonna be saying that a lot throughout this. We're almost done with this.
Yep.
Maybe we'll take it each time you say that.
Oh my god. Take a drink each time I say that too.
No.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, if we do that, we would all be wasted by this point, so.
No, we would be talking about hurricanes in Canada.
Oh no.
We don't need that.
Okay, so as you see, this is the CANSIPS 500 millibar geopotential height anomalies. Now, what do you guys see here? This is a known landfall pattern. Subtropics to polar, not exactly polar, I think, but definitely subtropics ridging here, especially over in Canada. What that's going to do is going to make recurving. Well, there's going to be less recurving with this type of setup. So storms are going to be forced kind of like down into.
Yeah.
They're going to be just forced down more south into the Caribbean where it's going to hit something.
Yep.
So that is more of a landfall pattern, more of a anywhere landfall pattern, really, for the Caribbean and United States, but that does increase the risk for a United States landfall.
Yes.
It's not looking good. There's another map for this, but I'm not going to show it because I'm pretty sure Pat's already getting tired of switching through images. But
I had to be called out like that. Oh, okay.
How dare you?
Okay. All right. Please continue, Yoshi.
Looking at the C3S 500 height anomaly, we see a very similar pattern in what I posted was October. Okay. And October is special because that's when a lot more United States landfalls happen because a lot more systems develop closer to home.
Yeah.
particularly the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico. So seeing this type of pattern also kind of scares me, you know?
Yep.
Such strong ridging. And September also had that to a slightly lesser extent, but it still was almost just as worrying. So now, finally, where was I? Okay, there we go. So next up is going to be the WHAM. Not WHAM, but the West African monsoon. What I'm looking at is the ECMWF UK Met Super Blend from Ben Knoll here. Mr. Ben Knoll is a meteorologist, and he produces a lot of maps like this. I like the guy, honestly. Rainfall anomaly in inches.
Oh.
If we look in June,
I'm looking. Oh, I see it. Yep, I see it.
I posted 2 of them. June through August, and June through August also, but this time in the just in the Atlantic. But looking worldwide, which is where we're going to see it the best. Do you see that there's parts of Africa here? The ITCZ is more northern than normal, and then we have places that should be really, really dry in a normal year that just aren't. That place is called the Sahel.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, that is at least less dry, possibly wet, and definitely wetter than normal. And what I want to tout is that a wet Sahel usually means, and I say usually because we can't be 100% on this, but I'm pretty confident in that we're going to see less Saharan air layer outbreaks this year, particularly because we are seeing a wet Sahel, particularly because we are seeing
a wet Sahel region.
More northern ITCZ from that positive AMM that is causing this. So that's also going to mean less Saharan air layer. It's not going to be as thick. It's not going to be as up in the atmosphere, and there's not going to be as much of them, which is important because the reason July is so inactive is because that's when the Saharan air layer is so prevalent.
Yep.
The reason I chose the June through August map for this one was because July is in it, and probably where you want the Sahel region to be the most wet if you don't want to have Sahel outbreaks. Look at that. We have a wet Sahel.
Yep. Wetter monsoon season. That's what I'm looking at. Oh boy. If that were the case, that'd be 2 things. Number one, less Sahara air, and number 2, more intense tropical waves, essentially.
Absolutely.
Man, that is not good.
Basically, and thanks to that, we're also, and guess what? It's kind of like funneling that in pretty much.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt.
And because we have that subtropical ridge, the ITCZ is more north. In a normal year, if the ITCZ was more north, we would have more rebounding and recurving storms. Yep. However, due to the ridge pattern we have, we're less likely to have recurving patterns, so it's just going to get funneled through the Caribbean. This is why I have said to at least myself, I haven't said this to anyone else yet, but I think that despite the fact that we're likely to have a slightly less actual storms in terms of numbers, we have just as big of a risk, if not more of a risk, for landfalls than last year, if I'm going to have to be honest.
Yeah, that really does increase the risk by quite a significant margin, because that also increased the amount of chances of landfalls too, the amount of chances of developments, and not just in the United States, but in the Caribbean too, and that's what's particularly concerning me with this pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead.
Wow. One final thing I want to go through, which is not as important, I believe, but it is going to be the upper tropospheric temperatures. Final temperature thing. The upper tropospheric temperatures, for what I've heard, for what I've seen, what smarter people have told me is that is if you have upper tropospheric temperatures that are warmer, very warm, then you're not gonna have as much instability. So now that was likely one of the reasons why 2024 didn't get the numbers, as much numbers as we did. I'm not going to say bust because it wasn't, honestly. It wasn't a bust, but it did not have the numbers that that people like CSU or NOAA were forecasting.
No.
That was one of the reasons, I believe pretty major reason, was very warm upper tropospheric temperatures.
Yes.
If we look at the upper tropospheric temperatures for what is this? I believe April 2025, we see that those upper tropospheric temperatures have gone down. They're actually slightly cooler than normal. And guess where it's cool now? EMDR.
Everything seems to be it's coming together. Ooh.
So that was one of the upper tropospheric temperatures was a significant fail mode in both 2023 and 2024. However, due to a recent short-lived La Nina, those temperatures have gone down. And now they are cooler than normal. So that means, assuming that they're going to stay like this, that those temperatures won't be as big of a problem and potentially help storms a bit, actually. Yeah. Because that may cause really a lot of instability within the MDR.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good. So we're just seeing that. I think that's all I posted. I do have a few more maps, but I decided to not include them because we are running out of time, though.
Sure. All
but
right.
Yeah, we're seeing everything is coming together, and so far, and I'm confident in saying this, by the way, and mainly because a person who's in university for about a year now,
sure,
has also said this to me, that there are no obvious fail modes. None. So I just want to highlight the risk in that not only are we going to see a high amount of storms, more than likely, that we are also going to see a lot of those storms get funneled onto land, or at least areas that have a lot of land, like the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico, getting funneled into there. Honestly, I don't use that sort of language lightly. If I'm going to have to be honest, I never said funneled in 2023, 2024. I'm using it now because I do believe that with the rage pattern and with the Northern ITCZ, it is quite literally going to get funneled through into the Caribbean. I guess that's all I have to say. I don't have anything more, honestly.
All right. Well, Yoshi, thank you very much for that. We really appreciate your analysis. And yeah, we'll continue to have you on during hurricane season, especially when things do start ramping up. I really do appreciate you coming on to do this. I'm sure you're going to stay on to for me to so I can say the stuff I'm going to say. But I will tell you this: I am concerned about those parameters in particular. I'm also worried a little bit about the wind shear, because I was kind of alluding to this earlier. And part of the reason I wanted to get to the wind shear parameters is because I've been looking at some of the runs. I'm looking at the climate models. I'm going to go ahead and shift back to the North Atlantic for the CFS. Here's the shear anomalies we have posted for it right here. I covered this in the video. May, generally above average in the Western MDR and Caribbean and all of that. June is a complete reversal, where we're seeing...
Wow.
Yeah, you guys seeing this change? We go from...
Whoa.
Yeah, Below average in the subtropics,
Ooh.
above average in the tropics. What a shift. What a shift in actually this is June.
Wow.
What a shift in July, ladies and gentlemen. That is why I am so concerned about this. And that is why I am so concerned about the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico, as well as more of the East Coast, too. Because, yeah, and this doesn't stop. And by the time we get to August, there's not much wind shear to weaken. Same with September. And then October.
Oh my good. No, you know what okay, go back to October for a moment.
Yeah.
What I'm worried
These
about,
are-
honestly, look at those Gulf of Mexico wind shear
Yes.
profiles.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Before,
Just
wind shear was a little iffy in 2024. Now we're seeing a consistent pattern of weaker than wind shear after July. I don't take that very lightly. And Yoshi, that wind shear is another fail-safe that is gone now, pretty much.
Absolutely. Assuming CFS is correct.
Of course. Yeah. We'll have to see what happens, though. Looking at current wind shear profiles right now, they're what you would expect. Actually, let me pull up an even more recent map. F5. Oh, here's 0Z. Perfect.
Awesome.
They're about what you would expect. 40 to 50 knots in a lot of these areas. That's about what you'd expect. A very unfavorable environment. But I will say those areas of strong wind shear, like it's a broad area, but they're not as powerful as they were last year at this point. They're not as strong. We'll have to see what happens with this. And we'll have to look at some archive data. Hold on. I think, John's messaging me right now.
I don't know why, but CanSips no
God.
longer have
John,
that data.
come into the call to say what you just said to me in the chat right now, because I think we need a meme moment. Yeah.
Well, I'm really wondering what he's.
Oh yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry too much about it. But yeah, John, why don't you come into the VC and do that? He's coming in. Anyway, yeah. We got some problems with the shear where it's weaker than what we were thinking it would be. We'll have to see how it pans out. Okay.
If we are going to trust CFS, which does have a iffy track record,
it does, yeah.
But I want to, but I'm not completely throwing it out the window. It isn't completely buns. It's just kind of iffy, and I want to wait until the June 1st climate models on this.
100%.
But if we are to believe the CFS V2, then I want everyone to look at this real quick in stream resources. Crap, is Brendan in here? No, he's not.
Brendan's here. Brendan's here.
I'm still here.
No, not in stream resources. I want to bring him into stream resources real quick.
Oh, okay.
The latest post is the CFS V2 monthly standardized SSTs.
Okay.
And I'm not liking this, honestly.
Neither am I.
It shows a very good, not the best canary current, but it shows still extremely warm Northeast Atlantic SSTs.
Yeah.
That we still have a cold spot just south of Greenland and along the Canadian seaboard, so we won't have issues there.
No.
And the MDR closer to the equator is very warmer than the subtropics.
Not good.
So, all in all, very dangerous SST pattern. And I've said this to others, that if we get anything close to what CFSV2 is saying, then I might start predicting. I'm not going to start predicting, but in my range, in my forecast, we're going to cover that soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
Everyone's forecasts, personal forecasts.
Sure.
I would start putting hyperactive in that range.
Mm.
Can I say something?
Go ahead, John.
Oh no.
Oh God.
Go ahead, John.
If you are along the coast, especially after July, get ready for a little bit of everything.
Let's
Okay,
go.
man.
Okay.
Let's go. Let's go.
The
Based on
amount
these
of times
runs.
the amount of times I heard that from January to March is
And it's still
unforgettable.
reliable today.
You should have seen what I did at the talent show I took part of at school. I included John saying a little bit of everything in that because the meme showcase I presented was a little bit of everything. But
Oh no.
okay.
Oh no.
Anyway, that
You know, I would
aside,
really love to see that
I'll
on
show
the
you.
Pat's
I'll show you.
Predictor channel.
Probably. How about we do this first and then we have some fun with it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You know
I
what?
don't know
That
if I wanna
works.
take part.
That'll
Okay.
be something we can do after stream.
We could do that. Yeah. Let's. Yeah. I'll show. Yeah. Let's do this first, and then I'll show you guys afterward. Anyway. Yeah. Okay.
I can tell no one liked it when I said that hyperactive could be in the forecast.
Yeah.
What? Just wondering, why is that?
Mainly because it's a little too early to determine. Also, 2024 was supposed to be a hyperactive hurricane season, and it didn't quite. It was still active, but it didn't quite pan out that way.
By the way,
Like-
I'm a
let me
bit
just add
careful
real quick.
about that.
So going
That's
back
fair.
to one key thing that we have to all consider. Saharan dust season, right? Because what we've seen just in the last, say, 5 years is that becoming more prolonged and
Yeah.
lasting longer.
Yeah.
Which further then delays development, at least within the eastern portion of the MDR.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, one thing I also want to call out, John, I love when you say a little bit of everything too. It's just like, I need to make that a shirt. That's amazing. But he is,
Oh, no.
he is right, because I'm going to actually take that a step further. You want to talk about crazy.
Your merch?
There's another storyline that I think we have to watch, and this is one that's, I guess, very extreme on the spectrum, but
Okay.
Florida is undergoing an extreme drought.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is really concerning to me because, say, and play along here, team. Say if we did have a Helene impact southern central Florida, right, or some tropical system that drops at least, say, a foot of rain. Well, what that's going to do is, once again, that vegetation is going to love it. It's going to go, oh my gosh, thank goodness, rain. I haven't seen it in weeks, right? But then subsequent to that, you're going to see vegetation growth, especially near Lake Okeechobee. And if you get as far north as the Panhandle, we're talking about the Apalachicolas.
Yeah.
And that to me, let's not forget, Florida does have wildfires.
Yes, they do.
So it's a silent storyline, and one that I think chat's going, what the hell is this guy off his rocker? But it is one that really concerns me because all it takes is for a hurricane to drop that amount of rainfall, and then subsequent to that have a drought that lasts just as long. Now we're talking about a serious wildfire concern because now we've just accumulated and aggregated more fuels in an area that can burn. So watch that space really closely because that's something that we really need to start paying attention to here. Not just this year, but I think the next 5-10 years.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So what do I say, John? What do you say? It's a little bit of what?
Everything.
Oh no.
My God.
Goodness.
Okay.
if we ever make merch, we gotta make that a shirt.
Yo, I gotta say
Like I said,
this. There's,
That's Predictive merch.
bro. Yeah, for sure. I will say this, yo, John. I think I told you this. One of my friends back at school used the line, and I just burst out laughing about that.
Oh yeah, you told me that.
Yeah, basically, she came out. She had cookies, and we asked what she had. She had said a little bit of everything. Okay, I'm gonna stop before we get past this. But anyway,
What is this hurricane season gonna be?
A little
Waiting
bit
for
of
it,
A little bit of
There
everything.
you go.
It's
That's going
only
in the
funny when
highlights.
John says it.
Okay, I know people are getting like Patrick, get to the weather. Also, shout out to Theodore Johnson, one of our members, right now who's in the chat. We do have some questions I want to kind of pan towards. Okay, could we see a lot of rapid intensification in the Gulf of Mexico this year, like with Helene and Milton and IG Barrel right before the Texas landfall? I guess Barrel. Yeah. That's definitely a big possibility with that, in particular, because of how warm it is and how deep those waters go. I would not rule that out. Absolutely not. We've seen that every year over the last 5 years, where something just goes in the Gulf and blows up.
High surface sea surface temperatures, high OHC.
Yes.
Especially if we look towards October, where we see most like Gulf rapid intensifications.
Yeah.
Very, very low shear. That's prime for something to spin up really, really fast. I'm not going to say that something will spin up really, really fast. I need to be careful with my words. I haven't been careful with my words lately.
It's okay.
So I need to say this, that I'm not predicting anything with like how a certain storm will go or how really anything would track. I'm just predicting the variables that would go into it.
Yes. When do we get these predictions? We're going to do it right after that we're done with questions, Theodore, but please continue, Yoshi.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's about it. Answering the next question. Could we see it? Oh, that's wasn't 2024 hyperactive by Ace?
It was
yes.
It was?
It was close to not being. Yeah. 160.3.
Okay. All right. I'll give it that.
It went down like 0.2 points because Milton stuff.
Sure.
But like, yeah, I think it's like 160.1 to 160.3. So very, very close. But technically, on a technicality, yes, it was hyperactive.
All right.
There was a question before that, I'm pretty sure.
The west coast of Florida see impact any Florida likely see any tropical systems?
Yep. Okay. But I'm going to say that in my announcement for like my updated forecast. I had a forecast on Twitter. It's very outdated by now. I was predicting like 13 to 15 storms. You guys know that those numbers are way too low now.
Yes.
So yeah. There's no more questions, I believe.
There's one last one. What do you guys think about the Central American impacts? They're more likely going to get hit, but I would pay more attention to the gyre systems. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. All right.
Now to the forecasts.
Forecast. Who's going to start?
I do have to go soon, so would it be okay if I start?
Yeah, go for it.
Absolutely,
Go for it.
Go for it.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you, I guess, a breakdown by region. What I do believe in, I'll say either very high, moderate, or variable. Okay.
That's fine.
In my prediction.
That's fine.
Okay. So I'm going to start with the very high, and then So the very high region I think is probably going to get hit the most, of course, is the Gulf Coast, ranging from Texas to Florida. So this includes metro areas like Houston, Galveston, Lake Charles, New Orleans, Pensacola, and the Big Bend of Florida.
Yes.
Record SSTs in the Gulf of Mexico, ridge trapping heat, and no fail modes. And a high OHC is just some of the key factors for that, which that's why I believe it's a very high risk. Next is the Florida Peninsula. So that includes Miami, Tampa, Naples, and the Florida Keys. Like I said, some of the variables above. And the Atlantic sides hot, enhanced, and plus a AMM effects is probably going to, I guess, enhance the risk more than usual, especially for South Florida. Probably something unprecedented, probably since we've seen 2017.
Yeah.
So that's probably going to give it a higher risk than usual in this type of year. I talked about this earlier. I put it at a high risk. It's the Southeast Atlantic coast, which includes Charleston, Savannah, Georgia, and Jacksonville. Ridge patterns favoring more landfalls in that area, warm shelf waters and blocked recurves, will probably give that area more of a risk than usual.
Yeah.
Just because if there's no recurve, it's just going to go straight there. It won't curve north. It'll just go straight there, which could bring a higher risk for landfall in that area, which they have not seen in a while.
For sure.
At a moderate risk, I have the Western Caribbean and the Yucatan Peninsula. So it includes Cozumel, Belize, and the Grand Cayman Islands.
Sure.
Very warm waters and a potential genesis zone feeding into the Gulf and Florida could give that area a possibility for a pretty good risk at a hurricane. Then the second to last, I do have the Mid-Atlantic and Northeastern United States. Hold on. So the areas I have there is the Outer Banks, Virginia Beach, New York City, and Cape Cod. There's a reason why I'm putting it here, because there's always possibility for a northeaster, like we've seen before for a recurve. There's always a possibility.
As well as a tropical
Northeastern,
storm that's inland too.
yes. Northeastern ATL marine heat waves possibility for a longer lasting storm into the northern areas.
Sure.
So that there's always a possibility of that. It just depends, I guess, how the surface waters are farther out. If they're warmer, if they're colder, I can update the model. But it definitely depends on those factors I stated above. And then in the variable I have, that means they can go from very high to a moderate, is the Central Atlantic MDR. So that includes Cape Verde and to the Lesser Antilles. It is warm, but weaker CZ presence. Landfall potential depends on the storm's path. Everything does. So I did that put as a little more broad. But basically, just showing, we've talked about this before. I can share the map I made
All right.
before in a second, but I just have to fix some of this. But I basically just looking at everything, most likely for landfall, you're probably going to see stuff probably from Mobile. I'm gonna give you like a triangle. So from Mobile, Alabama, Havana, Cuba, the Bahamas, probably all the way to, I want to say, Virginia Beach. That is a little bit of a triangle I will give you for a risk. That's probably where your highest risks are to look at. So that is something definitely to watch out for. But that is my prediction.
All right. Thank you very much, Red Tie. We
Yes.
appreciate that. In terms of
No problem.
the areas of greatest risk, who would like to go next?
I guess I'll go real quick.
Go ahead, Brendan.
Are we doing this in terms of by region, or was that just
Risks? Any risk / storm? Now out of storms, your choice.
How you want to do it? I personally did named hurricanes, major hurricanes, ACE, and special focus on Florida.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever you want to do,
I'm
Brendan,
gonna
your
stick to-
choice.
Okay, cool. I'm going to stick to what Red did. I kind of liked his
right.
methodology. Yeah, I greatest risk has to be golf. I mean, that's pretty clear as day. I'm really not bullish on the Eastern Seaboard. Really not. And yes, we could take a shot, sea surface temperature increase near the Eastern Seaboard, the Mid Atlantic. That's certainly a possibility. But again, factoring in what I expect to be a prolonged Saharan dust season across the Eastern MDR, that would lead me to believe that we're not going to see many storms reaching that far west into the eastern coast or the east coast of the United States. Not to say that we couldn't see a system, because we did last year, especially in the Carolinas. It's just I'm not very bullish on that. The Gulf is really a no-brainer. But I'll also kind of pivot to just activity in general. I personally believe, in terms of, because I'll just say landfalls. I know the National Hurricane Center and CSU, they use these forecasts to just count the amount of named storms, not necessarily landfalls. But I will make the argument that we see, I'll say, about 3 landfalls in the Gulf. And I'm going to be a little bit controversial here. I'm going to say no landfalls in the Atlantic.
In where?
Not for the Atlantic coast. No.
Insert
landfalls.
dramatic gasp.
Now, I'm going to make also a very bullish prediction, and I want everybody, Pat, I want you to pin this because I want
Okay.
to come back to this. I think we didn't talk about the Pacific as much. I think Hawaii sees a Cat 1 this year. I think this is the year we see a Cat 1.
If
And
they
I
do,
mean that. I mean that. So pin that in the chat. Let's see if I'm right at the end of the year. But I think Hawaii, and it does not have to be Honolulu and Oahu. I'm talking about Hilo, even the Big Island. The Big Island, anywhere in Hawaii, I think we'll see a Cat 1 this year.
okay, like the stream. If you think Brendan's prediction's a bit too bullish, like the stream.
You know,
If you like the stream anyway, if you want to.
you know,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to agree with Brendan. There's a possibility for that.
Oh yeah, there's always a possibility. It just seems a little outlandish.
Yeah, honestly.
Possibly, but I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But there's that possibility, and I have to agree with Brendan.
Okay, I'll
Really?
I'll leave
Okay.
it be. Honestly, anything else, Brendan? I mean, is this?
Let me just a little bit of context on that. A little bit of context, and because I know Hawaii's not like the main focus, and I understand that. But if it doesn't happen this year, we're getting ever so closer to it happening. And I can tell you from my, we'll put on my catastrophe risk hat. I know that we all know there hasn't been a lot of historical impacts to Hawaii, and that makes it quite challenging to be able to forecast that. But as I've seen, especially, what is that? Sea surface temperatures, all right? Take a shot.
Yeah.
Sea surface temperatures near Hawaii are also gradually increasing in the Central Pacific, in the East Central Pacific. It is only a matter of time. Hawaii is a ticking time bomb. But I am even more so bullish because I think this year, given the conditions, given the ENSO, and also given the PNA, I think we're going to see that PNA flip right back to more of a positive PNA, which would lead to a lot of favorability for Hawaii. So I'm going to stick to it. Cat 1 Hawaii this year. It's happening.
Okay. Thank you, Brendan. I appreciate it. Yoshi,
my pleasure.
To stop the madness, go for it.
Okay. Well, I don't want to bring the other two under the bus, but I do want to say something that might bring the other two forecasts under the bus. And, I have a slightly less educated opinion on this hurricane season and forecasting in general than Brendan does. But I genuinely think this. Doing like zones, risk zones, especially at this time of year, where this zone has a high chance, this zone has a medium chance. We have, I wouldn't say almost no forecast skill lead, but it isn't exactly high. It isn't exactly a high skill lead either to say something as bullish as the other two are saying. Honestly. Like, no offense to you two. You guys are great forecasts, especially Brendan. You got meteorological experience. All right. So, like, even less of a reason I should be denying you. But I really do believe this, that making impact zone forecasts is honestly ludicrous, especially at this type of year.
That's understandable.
Because, like, yes, it can be worse, but, like, guys, come on, really? But it isn't about the others' forecast. It's about my forecast now, which actually saying that sounds a bit egotistical. I'm not even going to lie. But here's what I'm saying. And I'm taking this from text I put out yesterday, actually. So thank God I did this. Hurricane season in general will be active. Season in total forecast. 15 to 20 named storms, 6 to 9 hurricanes, 2 to 5 major hurricanes, which I should have bumped that to 3 to 5 major hurricanes. So I'm going to say that. And then 130 to 160 ace. And another part of my forecast, ace west of 60 west. Last update, it was 70 to 90 ace. However, ACE forecasts in total have risen. That alone would bring it up to 95 to 105. To add on, more indicators of United States risk have appeared over the month or missed last forecast. Positive AMM, Natal warmth hole, and formation in the Caribbean ACE west of 60 has increased to 105 to 120. This range will narrow by June 1st when Canceps comes in, and another narrowing by June 10th when Euro UK Met Blend comes in. ACE west of 60 range is 105 to 120. Most likely ACE west of 60 would be 110.
Yeah. That's accumulative cyclonic energy, by the way.
And I made a special thing on Florida. Florida is likely still in front of a barrel this year. On the May forecast, there is no landfall effect likeliness numbers, as there is no confidence that far out. However, we're close enough as to where we can make a general forecast. I say general forecast, guys. General. Forecast skill at this lead is still not much. Our June 10th forecast will be looking at this again with better skill lead. Florida has a 75% chance of getting hit by a tropical cyclone this year, with increased chances of a strong cyclone. This is due to indicators of risk for Florida increasing, including indicators last stated and Gulf Caribbean warmth. That was my forecast. How do you guys think of it?
I think it's fine.
Yeah. I think so as well.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Pat.
I'll go ahead and say it. I'm going to split down the middle a little bit in terms of how these guys have ranged their forecasts. Not solely because here's what I'm thinking right now. I said this earlier in the video. I stand by it. I think we're going to see 17, at least as of May 24th, 17 named storms. I would see maybe 7 to 9 hurricanes, maybe 7 to 10. And I would say 3 to 6 major hurricanes is the most likely target as of right now, in my opinion.
Sick.
The reason I'm doing that is because of the waters, the SSTs, and the lower wind shear values. And climatologically, compared to last year, I would argue that the analytics in terms of from a climatological perspective are even better than last year. What I'm iffy about is the Sahara air layer, as well as how warm those SSTs gets and how much OHC is going to pop up. Is it going to be like last year? I'm not sure. We'll have to see how it happens. I think there's a chance it could be 2023 levels, but 2024 was on another level. Now, in terms of fail-safes, there's maybe some small fail-safes, but unless you're at the boundary layer, I don't see them. And in terms of the greatest risk, I'm not going to put high risk, medium risk, low risk, or anything like that. But I do want to highlight 2 areas of that I want to put out as the greatest risk. The first area of greatest risk is, I would say, the Lesser Antilles and Greater Antilles. Pretty much the Caribbean basin, pretty much. That is my area of highest risk in the Atlantic. The reason for that is because of an active MDR, an active Sahel region, and lower wind shear values as well as the ridge that's going to bring more storms into your area. That's why I highlight it as the highest risk. In terms of the United States, the highest risk area I would put is the Gulf Coast. That's where I'm gonna put it. If you guys give me flack for that, go for it.
I think everyone agrees with you here.
Yeah, how dare you?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what everybody has said, so I don't see why people would disagree.
I just know the methods and all of that. In terms of risk, Yoshi doesn't like that. So I just thought I'd moderate and just put it like that.
Yeah, just to back up for a second, and this is, I think, the biggest takeaway, just to wrap this whole discussion up in a bow. Pat and I, as Yoshi called out, we both, Pat, you officially have your meteorology degree, right? Can I say that now? You officially are a meteorologist?
Yeah, you could say that. I don't have it physically. I need to get it in the mail first, but
Sure, but
Yeah.
you are okay. That's besides the point. But yes, so myself and Pat are degreed meteorologists. However, that being said, just because we have degrees in meteorology doesn't necessarily mean we are amazing at forecasting. And that's not a knock on Pat necessarily or myself. But when I was going through my degree, and even after the fact, people that I still keep in touch with from the college that I went to, there are many folks that don't even touch weather models, let alone know even some of the basic principles of forecasting. Yeah, it doesn't mean that they don't know about meteorology. It's just when it comes to forecasting, I've actually found that there are people that don't have degrees, such as Yoshi, for example, who are better forecasters than probably about 80% of my cohort. So the skill of forecasting, in my opinion, and a lot of professors will say this, has nothing to do with the degree. As a matter of fact, a degree in meteorology doesn't make you a good forecaster. Being a good forecaster is about looking for those intricacies, looking for those details that can really make or break a forecast.
It also
right?
takes a lot of practice too, Brendan.
And a lot of
Yeah,
practice.
I completely agree.
So if there are folks, and I don't know anybody on YouTube. Oh, by the way, speaking of YouTube, there are people that don't have meteorology degrees that have very large channels that I would argue are pretty damn good forecasters.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So it doesn't. It's not an indication of that. So I just want to make that clear because I think Yoshi actually kind of subtly mentioned this prior, but there actually is a sort of an arrogance that exists in the meteorology field, especially with those that have degrees, even as high as masters, that think, well, I have a master's degree, therefore I'm better than 80% of people out there.
No.
I'm telling you that's not the case. So, Yoshi, I know you called it out a few times, but I just want to make that call out. I appreciate, your perspective on things, and you don't need a degree to have that perspective. And you would be surprised because your perspective, I think, has a lot more weight than even folks that have degrees. So
Absolutely.
take that positively.
All right. Well,
What's the word? I am quite flattered, honestly.
you've been doing a fantastic job here at Storms United for the last year. We appreciate it. I just wanted you to know that.
Honestly, I wouldn't consider myself like the best meteorologist ever. I still wouldn't consider myself like a good one because I still make mistakes from time to time.
We all
I
do.
still make a lot of bold decisions that probably shouldn't have been made. And I would never think for a second that I would be better than a degreed meteorologist. I'm going to be honest. To hear that, it's like, I don't know whether that's uplifting me or if that's like throwing other like degreed meteorologists under the bus because they in fact don't know what they're doing. You can have a degree and not know what you're doing. But like with a degree you do have that knowledge and whatnot. So like I don't know what to say about what Brendan said.
I'll take it a step further. The ones who are truly successful in this field, people who are willing to learn. And I'll end with this on my part. I'll drop it after this. But
Yeah.
One of the best quotes that I've ever heard from one of my professors, and it sticks with me to this day in my profession. He said, "You are always a student, no matter what." Like the idea that you get your degree and you stop learning. Well, you're not going to be successful if you just say, "Okay, got my degree and I know everything. I'm good." No. You are always a student. Always. It never changes. There is always something new. Our science is constantly evolving. Hell, everybody talks about AI. That's the big buzzword, right? Well, that has ties to meteorology. We use weather models. AI, in of itself, is a model, and it's helping, or what we think is helping, to improve the model guidance that we have. Quantum computing, right? That's another big frontier that we haven't even tapped into yet. So there's, and let alone us understanding hail. Hell, I know we're getting off track from hurricane, but we have a massive field campaign going on across the plains tonight. The largest campaign of chasing hail in 40 years.
Yep.
Why? Because we still don't understand jack squat about hail.
Yep.
So that's if you think whether you have a degree or not, if you think you know everything, you don't. You don't, and that's my whole
I know
point.
for a fact
So,
I don't know everything.
and I don't either,
Yeah.
right? So Yoshi, ultimately, what I'm getting at here is, unfortunately, you have folks in my profession who are degreed meteorologists. They did the workload to get the degree, and they earned it.
Yep.
But there's a very fine difference between being a meteorologist and being a forecaster. Being a forecaster requires skill that Pat called out, requires practice over time. That is a learned skill. That's not something that can be necessarily taught.
Okay, someone in chat just put this out real quickly. I want to point this out. As a viewer, I'd rather watch someone without a degree give me as much warning as possible than one with a degree being too scared to warn / predict what they deem as too soon. Absolutely.
And that's
That's
a
yeah.
great comment.
Can I?
And
Can I?
everybody would agree with that. Yes, real quick, but let me just get within like 10 seconds.
Mhm.
Sure.
Okay.
10 quick seconds, and then I'll pass it to you. You hit it right on the head. And I'll take that comment a step further. I'll raise you one. To the person that said that, the other component is it's easier to understand them.
Yep.
Easier to understand them. If I was telling you, like, compare me, let's just use Ryan Hall as an example, right? Compare me to Ryan Hall. If I'm telling you as a meteorologist, I can tell you all about QG, vorticity, tendency equations, all that. Listen, but that's really technical jargon. What Ryan Hall and many YouTubers, even Pat, are able to do is bring it down to a level of understanding that a broader audience can conceptualize it, and to your point, know what's going on. So there's a reason, and it's funny you mention that, because I saw within my degree, there's a lot of people at the university level that despise weather content creators. And to me, it's surprising because, there's a reason why they're so big. There's a reason why weather as a whole community on YouTube is so big, is because people gravitate to that. People can understand it. If that wasn't the case, Ryan Hall wouldn't have 2 million subscribers. Max Velocity wouldn't have 1 million. Hell, Pat wouldn't even have a YouTube channel.
Nope.
We wouldn't even be here talking if that was the case.
Exactly.
So excellent call out, and I'll defer to Red Tie. I think you wanted to get in on that.
Go for it.
No, I'm just gonna share something. So, be surprised or be not. Weather is not even on my plan to be in my degree level whatsoever. It's actually in my name. Politics and foreign affairs.
Yeah.
I, at my YouTube level, which I have not posted in about 100 days, there's a reason why I have not. Which I can get into later if people want to know. It's not going to be on the live, which I share it. But
Go for it.
But basically, the reason why I believe, and this can be deferred or not, in politics, I don't do really foreign affairs. I do predictions.
Yeah.
And I just want to share something. The reason why I do believe doing a prediction is harder to do than actually forecasting is because by doing a prediction, you're putting your own bias and belief.
Yes.
Right? That is something very hard to take out. So by me or by Brendan or by Pat making a prediction, you are basically saying, oh, from what I understand, what I believe is best, this is what's going to happen. That's not the case.
So you're taking, essentially, if I may, you're essentially taking politics from solely an analytical standpoint.
Yes. But it can go much deeper. I mean, it's not only analytical. I take it from a fact of understanding models and understanding, I guess, factors to different things and making my predictions at a best case scenario, which has worked very well for me because all my models have been at 99%.
All right.
Well, I just wanted to share that really quickly because I don't think people understand clearly. The reason why I came here is because I do have a passion for weather, and I think that shows very clearly.
Yes, it does.
So I do want to share that because somebody who even is not really clearly going into weather can still understand stuff and they're not always going to be correct, but it's still going to show. I mean, I'm not always correct. I just want to share that I'm not always correct. That shows in the 99% that I always get. But I just wanted to share that because I thought it was pretty interesting. I don't think you guys really realized what I was mainly doing
All right.
So yeah.
I want to say something for a minute,
Sure.
and it's off of Brendan's point. What Brendan said like 5, 10, 15 minutes ago. What I was in response to him, what I was gonna say is that over my 5 or so years of meteorology, the most important thing I have personally learned is to trust people smarter than you. Not like give 100% trust, because you want to be one of those smart people one day. And to be one of those smart people one day, you have to do what they do, right? Make your own forecast. You have to be, sometimes, especially in the later stages, you have to be a bit bold. But especially in the early stages when you're learning meteorology, and I know there's some people that want to be meteorologists or want to know a lot about the weather one day in this chat, in
Yeah.
this VC, in
Absolutely.
this place. And I'm going to say to you, especially those who have just started getting into meteorology, trust those who are smarter than you. Because if you don't, you're going to get nowhere. Because like, and there's this, goodness, it's like I forgot what it's called, but basically like, if you barely know anything, you're really confident, but the more you know about it, the less confident you are, because you know there's still a lot of stuff ahead that you have to learn. And what a lot of beginners don't realize is that they still have a lot to go.
Yep.
And a lot of them, Dunning-Kruger, I think that's it. Yeah, Dunning-Kruger, thank you. Dunning-Kruger effect. That beginners think they know everything. But to those who think that they know everything in meteorology, you don't. I'm going to say it plain and simple. If you think that you know everything in meteorology, you do not. I am saying that with my full chest, because I thought that once. And that would have led me to a path where I made horrible forecasts and listened to no one.
Yeah.
You need to get advice from people, from those around you. You need to get advice from people that you know is smarter than you. I make sure that everything I'm saying is right. And I said, correct me if I'm wrong. And I said, interrupt me if I'm wrong, because we have two I would say three, actually, very, very smart people in here. Two of them having meteorology degrees. And I know that these two people, Pat and Brendan, know what they're talking about.
Yep.
So if I say something wrong, they can hook me up and say, "Hey, you're saying this wrong." And if someone is saying, "Hey, you're saying this wrong," or that you're just wrong about this certain concept, and especially if they give you the right advice, follow that. Because there's a lot of people that don't do that and that fail in meteorology.
Yeah.
It really goes anywhere, really, especially at higher level applications like high school, college. You have to listen to those who are smarter than you. Now, once you get later into your meteorology career, like 3-4 years experience, you can start to make your own forecasts and show it to others, especially those people smarter than you.
Yep.
And you can start to be a bit bold, but not egotistical. That's a thing. In meteorology, especially in higher levels, you can be bold, but you can't be egotistical.
Yep.
That's the thing, right?
That's
You
for
have
sure.
to have that balance, because if you're not bold, then you think you're not good enough and you won't make forecasts. But if you're egotistical, you're going to make forecasts that you think is right, but are not. You're going to make a lot of those type of forecasts.
Yep.
And without help from smarter people you trust, or just even people at the same level than you who have maybe a different perspective, you should try to get those type of people. That is especially going to help you. And you should try to seek out more advanced level stuff once you're there. such
Yep.
as I've started getting into papers. I've read a CAG paper, and hold on, I'm sorry, I have to do something.
All right.
It's something in chat. It's something political.
Okay.
I think I hit that user. Awesome. Okay, back to that. Just had to hide a user because they were saying political nonsense.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of keep repeating myself over this, and some people are tired of it, but it's important. One of the most important things in meteorology, really anywhere, that I had to learn the hard way. And I know Brendan and Pat could say about this type of stuff for hours and hours because they went through it. Brendan, Pat, how much years do you have in experience in meteorology so far?
In terms of
You mean
official or
what do you mean, like in terms of
unofficial?
work? Yeah.
I would say like when you guys started tracking weather as a hobby,
Oh gosh,
started
like
learning stuff.
2015.
probably when I was. Yeah, and for me it was when I was 12, so that would have been way back in 2011.
Yeah, for me it was
2012.
2015.
Yeah, Pat has 10 years, and Brendan has a lot more years. I think 18,
14.
19.
About 10.
14,
Yeah,
yeah.
about 10.
14. So
Sure.
I follow these people because they have the experience, they got the knowledge. Now, because I'm 5 years in meteorology, I can be a bit bold, but I can't be egotistical. So and just because some people are meteorologists, a lot on Brendan's point, just because people are meteorologists doesn't mean they're right 100% of the time. And especially if you're like a more experienced person, you can have different views versus a meteorologist. Right. Such as one example actually would be today when Brendan made a risk zone forecast, which I personally disagree with people doing that. He did that, I didn't, and I kind of sort of called him out on it. No harsh feelings, man. I just had to call that out. But we disagree on each other, and it's not because, in this case, he does have more experience than me in forecasting and has a lot more knowledge than me.
Yep.
But this is more of this type, like zone forecast versus more general forecasts. That's going to be more of a perspective thing. Now maybe we have the technology, the forecast lead in the future that we will be able to do zone forecasts.
Yep.
But by then, meteorologists would unilaterally agree that we should do that. But right now, meteorologists and non-meteorologists have different opinions, even within both types of communities.
Sure.
From different perspectives.
Yeah.
As Brendan said, someone who has a degree can be really bad, and someone who doesn't have a degree, as long as you're knowledgeable, can be really good.
Yep.
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
just the main thing I said with basically like saying something I could have said in like 2 sentences for a solid 20 minutes
All right.
is that follow people you trust, and that you can be bold, but you can't be egotistical in meteorology.
All right.
There we go.
Thank you very much, Yoshi. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream tonight, and on that note, because we have a big hurricane season ahead of us, and ultimately, I'm probably going to enjoy the little rest I am going to get before that ramps up. So, yeah, what I will say is I know I've been gone for the last couple of months, and ultimately, what I will say is I know I've made a lot of promises I haven't kept up with for those who have been tuning in with me. And what I'll say to you is this. Number one, I'm sorry. It wasn't fair for me to do that. And number two, going forward, since I'll have a lot more time to do stuff, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to pull through And if not, I'm going to let you guys know, because that's not fair on you guys, if that makes sense. This isn't just to everyone Storms Tonight. This is to my audience. It's not fair on you guys to expect something that doesn't happen. And I'm going to be more straight with you guys. I'm going to be more forthcoming with a lot of stuff because, man, it's been quite a interesting last couple of months for me personally. Stuff I won't get into, but what I'll say is, things definitely got interesting. I'll just put it at that. Jump to your own conclusion. In terms of weather, well, I think today marks the end of my off season, and I'm going to be here for hurricane season like I usually am. I'm going to be posting and all of that stuff. I'm going to do my best to upload more than I did last year and stream and have a more consistent schedule, because this is something I want to continue doing as more of a full-time hobby and all of that. And I couldn't be more grateful with the audience I have. I know we didn't have a lot of people tonight. That was to be expected. This is more of a stream to get me into the groove of things. And it's so good to do this again. And I know going forward, we're going to have nights where we're going to have hundreds of people on stream. And that's going to be exciting. That's going to be great. That's going to be fantastic and all of that. But right now, we're at the start of it. We're only going to continue to get better from here. And as time goes on, we're going to show you more of our projects and more of the toys we've been working on during the off season. And I'm very excited to show you that during hurricane season. I know Yoshi's very excited to show some of the stuff he's doing. Same with Tyler as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ooh, Tyler's making stuff?
Yeah,
Ooh, that's
Tyler's
cool.
been doing Tyler's working on some stuff for us too.
Yeah, everyone's going to be excited with the projects.
Yep.
The one thing
I
I'm gonna say-
was originally going to stay with the project I made, but it isn't solely me, honestly. I don't know what other people are working on, but I know people are working on things. And I'm personally excited for me to release my thing, but also I'm excited when people will release their things. It's going to be awesome. This year is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going to tell you.
No, I think we're about to do.
Go ahead,
We're
Red
going to do a great job. Of course, this hurricane season, I think it's going to be better and more technical than it was last time. But
while keeping it and understand so the audience understands it.
Yeah, of course, and I think that's great. I'm just going to share this right here. I will be here this time, and because I'm going to be doing online this year for multiple other reasons. And it's not because of personal life; it's just for preference, I guess, because of what I want to do.
Sure.
Just it's a preference thing.
Okay.
But I'm going to be here much more than I was last time. So just to show that I will be here for everything that will be needed. So if anybody at Storms United, anybody watching, that will be in the Storms United Discord. If anybody needs anything, feel free to reach out.
Definitely. We appreciate you coming on tonight. All right. One last thing I will say is today's opening day, and the season has begun, and at least on the Pat's Path Predictor channel, and here we go. With that being said, we're closing out the stream. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. The goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. We'll have some more people on eventually. We've definitely changed how we've done our streams, and the structure we've done is essentially we're allowing less people on the streams, about 6 as a max, just so that way we can make things orderly and keep things going, and we can do it similar to what we did tonight. And I think it worked out pretty well. This was kind of a test. This was kind of a pilot to what I wanted to do. And it's working good, and we're going to keep improving on it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the stream tonight. I hope this was more of a chill stream than anything. Once the real crazy shit happens, that's when things are going to get interesting. But
there's your one square card,
yep,
Pat.
there it is. I saved it till the end. But with that being said, have a wonderful evening, guys. Stay safe.